And we're started. Yes, we
Oh,
got Wednesday night chats number 7. Been away. I think everybody in the chat has been away of late.
really?
In,
Everybody?
yeah,
I mean, I
well,
know
there's
me,
only
right?
there's only the three of us, but Dennis and I were away also. So we're all fresh from the experience of the world outside of our usual bubble, and ready to reflect on our travels and what we learned and all of that kind of good stuff. So we got a Dennis.
Hi.
There we go. We got a Casey.
Hey, back again.
There we go. And that's about it. Yeah, I figured, there and back again. That's what we could chat about.
Jesus.
What did we experience?
Back again,
What did we learn? Right?
I just watched the entire Hobbit series flying back from London, so there and back again is a good way to
relevant to your recent experience.
Exactly relevant, but if anybody else wants to go first.
Yeah, well, I was out in the wilderness, right? So I've been dying of allergies. Basically, that's been my thing of late. I actually, like an adult human being, went to the doctor a little while ago, and I was like, "Hey, I think my immune system's like just being a butt more regularly than it used to. So what's going on with that?" And they took my bloods and ran tests and stuff, but he wasn't concerned about anything. So it's like, okay. And then suddenly, a few weeks, maybe a month later. Oh my lord, allergies just all over the place in forms that I've never experienced before. Like I used to always get hay fever, right? Sneeze and eyes itch and nose drains and things like that. And that's unfortunate. But now I've been getting this, like I feel like there's tension in my face and I just feel really like scatterbrained and exhausted. And I was like, whoa, that's really weird. And I took allergy medication one day and it just went away. And I was like, what? Hold on. Allergies can be like this, right? Which argues for really paying attention and being open to the fact that sometimes the things you think you understood, you only had a piece of.
That's fair.
And then I went out into the wilds. And it was all allergies all the time. I was hopped up on all the drugs and marching around and generally having a rough go of it. And, having the experience, hey, camera.
Yeah, your camera's been doing that.
Yeah, it doesn't believe in my desire to focus. Maybe.
Focus is overrated.
Yeah, so that's actually the experience of most human beings. Focusing is overrated. If you get anybody to pay attention for long enough to realize how distracted they are. But
I said that on purpose, didn't you know?
This sweet double entendre. But yeah, it was really a nice experience because it was, a bit arduous. And I feel like I was in pretty good spirits for most of the time when I was conscious. I spent a lot of time sleeping because it's like, well, we just hiked 14 miles and I'm on like 3 different drugs just to barely keep the quantity of sneezes like in the livable range. I never managed to actually suppress my allergies, but it would be if I wore a mask and took 3 drugs, I could just get there enough to hike 14 miles in a day. So I passed the hell out. Dennis, though, was I a cheerful dude?
Yeah, no. So, I will admit, I think we were all freaking tired the whole time, and it's interesting because for me too, like I didn't realize I feel like I wasn't as cheerful as I could have been, but no, I feel like all of our spirits and everything were as good. But I did realize, like, I don't think any of us were as talkative as we probably normally would be.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are just walking around, right? Like it's hard, like doing that much.
Walking in sand, so
yeah, walking in
it
sand
was really tough.
And almost, so the other thing about that for me was
also belated happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm old now. For anybody who's watching, I'm 34, 1 foot in the grave, just about over. So there you are. If you have any outstanding questions, things that you need me to think about for a minute and then reply some half-baked idea, this would be the time because it could go any day now. But the other thing for me that was really interesting was, we were up pretty high sometimes there. There were some trails that were real shaky.
Really?
Yeah. And
I have a holy cow.
I have a fear of heights, right? Like real existential terror of heights. And amusingly, so here's one of those little things that you notice when you spend a lot of time mulling over your own experience of life. I didn't have a fear of heights as a child. I didn't have a fear of heights until puberty arose and I became depressed. And my fear of heights is not the heights themselves, but the idea that at some point for just a moment, it'll make more sense to me to throw myself off than to stay on. That's my fear of heights, right? Which is grim. That's an experience that you have to have dealt with depression to really grok how that could be really relevant. But yeah, so we're up there and we're up on these heights, these little goat paths, you know, it's like this wide, it's sand, and it's 100-foot cliff and rocks. And I was terrified, right? And I'm terrified, and I'm in the middle of this line of dudes, right? And the dude in the front doesn't give a crap about heights, right? He's clearly is
Scott.
And
Scott, like Odessa Scott?
Scott's like no, a different Scott. Down south Scott, but he's an experienced backpacker, right? So he's just like, yeah, this is just the normal thing that you do. No,
like, this is the path we take.
Yeah, and he's just going, and then Dennis and Brad are behind me, right? And I am shaking in my boots, literally, right? Just trying to do one step at a time and make the accommodations that make it possible for me to get through this, right? And so at the same time as I'm trying actively not to die like that, my main focus is like, I really will die. I'm wearing at this point in the hike a 50+ pound pack that, and it's just straight down to rocks. So if I misplace a foot, I'm just dead, right? And at the same time, there's all this overlaid information that's totally not helping. Like, one part of my brain is just running through all of the various scenarios that could unfold after I'm irrevocably plummeting to my death. And it's like, dude, we don't have to game plan that stretch of our future existence, right? Like, if we're in that phase, there's nothing to be done about it. What are we spending the cognitive overhead on this for? And then there's this other part of my head that's just like, oh, everybody's going to think like stuff that I just made up about you. And it's like, no, they're not. Shut up. You're not helping. Right? So it's like, oh, they're all going to think you're like, afraid of it. It's like, yeah, they're going to think I'm afraid of that because, one, I'm going to tell them that. Like,
that's a normal thing to be afraid of.
Yeah. Right? And there's the part that's saying, like, so you have to now do behaviors to hide this, right? And none of those things were helpful at all. But I get to see them all, and I get to confront them all, and I get to work through them, right? And obviously it worked out. I'm not dead, so that's rad. The only time I fell on the entire trip was like when I was 8 inches above 6 inches of water, and then I got water in my boots, and it was a calamity. But putting yourself outside of your usual bubble gives you the opportunity to see those things, and it's really fun. And for me, what it was, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say perception is phenomenal because in my mind the whole time, I was like, man, Brian is just chugging along like Scott. And it blows my mind that these two guys are just tearing through this without a care in the world. So it's funny to me to hear that you're like, oh, God, because the whole time I was like, man, Brian and Scott don't give a fudge.
No, I was so profoundly puckered the whole time, right? But again, that speaks a lot to the difference between public and private information, right? Like, this private experience of being terrified so dominated my experience that I assumed everybody else had access to it. And nobody had access to it, right?
Not at all.
And that's a good thing to keep in mind. But for me, then it was, okay, so I have these processes going and they're not helping. So as soon as we got off of one of those, the first of those stretches, right, I immediately started talking to everybody about how much that scared the shit out of me, right? And especially, like, Scott was in the front and the most experienced, right? And so he's basically the de facto leader of our troop of fools. out here because he's the only one who's done this before, and we're on a trail that's like one of the hardest in California and will kill you in a number of different ways. Like, it was a profoundly dumb thing to be doing in the first place.
No, it's a really great experience.
Yeah,
we learned a lot.
So here's Scott, and there's this voice in my head saying, like, oh, you know, Scott is the same thing Dennis apparently was projecting onto me. I was projecting onto Scott. So who knows what Scott's experience was. Right?
God,
but there's this voice in my head that's like, you got to, like, look tough and earn this guy's respect because we don't know each other that well. You know, we've met a couple times and whatnot. And, you know, and he's the person who is in charge in the sense that he knows what the heck he's doing, right? And there are all of these like deep-seated hierarchical structures in our brain that are just like, okay, a hierarchy is forming, so I gotta earn the respect of the leader. And it's like, no, I don't at all. I don't. And this is useless and this isn't helping me. So the very first thing I did was, you know, when I caught up to him, I was like, holy shit. Yeah, I've got a massive fear of heights, and I just spent the entirety of that just puckered and shaking, trying to inch my way across, right? So now it's out there. So that voice that says you got to hide this, done, diffused. It can't make its case anymore because there's no opportunity to hide it, right? So just scratch that one off the list, and now I can focus on the next one, right? The next two, or the next whatever comes up. And that sort of experience of just, when the stakes are raised and we're outside of our comfort zone, we get to really see what comes out to interfere with us. And two, the experience that I can diffuse some of these. I can actually just knock them right out immediately if I do the opposite of what they're telling me to do. Once I take myself out of that decision point, right? Once do I hide this? Do I keep this a secret, or do I make this public, or do I just not say anything at all and let the chips fall where they may? Once I move past that choice point, then that's a whole slew of narratives that can't get run on me, that can't be used to interfere with what I'm up to. So that's a cool practice experience. So that's one of the many things that I learned on that. But I've been talking forever. Anybody else got something eating away at them that they want to share with the world?
Well, I'm actually just kind of curious about Casey right now because I had no idea you went to London. So what's going on over there?
I actually
went on the world tour.
I did go on a world tour. I wouldn't say world tour, actually. I did a little bit of London. I did a little bit of Europe. So I went to London. I went to Edinburgh. I went to Rome. It was kind of an impromptu trip with the wife, visiting her cousin, basically her sister, and I got to hang out with her husband, so quote unquote brother-in-law, I guess, whatever. They got married only a month after us, so we're relatively close in the whole thing. Did the whole 9 yards, man, for each city. London.
I saw you had a little adversity with the traffic divider.
Yeah, I'll post. I think that was posted in Discord. Dennis, did you see this?
No.
So basically, the first night I'm there, I'm jet lagged, I'm exhausted, and my brother-in-law
was tired and emotional, as the British public.
Yeah. So Simran, my brother-in-law, he's a bit of a drinker, and you know how everybody thinks I'm a drinker, I'm an alcoholic. No. This guy puts everyone to shame. Before I knew it, like this guy, like he's like, "Oh, how many drinks you've had?" I'm like, 4. He's like, "All right, cool." I come back from the bathroom. All right, I'm caught up. I'm actually 2 ahead now. We've had 6 drinks in the matter of 3 minutes. What? So he's that kind of guy. He's a great guy. I love him. He's actually a dentist. So, hey, look at that.
That explains the state of British dentistry, I suppose.
He's actually got really good teeth. So anyway, you know, we're drunk, and I'm like, I could do a cartwheel. I don't know why I wanted to do a cartwheel, Dennis. I said I wanted to do a cartwheel. So I'm drunk, and I do it on the wrong side. So I bang my left knee, which is the bad knee. I bang it on the ground. I'm like, you know, a couple minutes go by. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it on the right side this time. So I do it, I land it, and then all of a sudden I'm doing a forward roll over a fucking barrier into traffic. And then as I do a forward roll into traffic, I like fall on my ass again. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm in traffic. I get up, take the barrier, put it back up. You don't see that part. But like all of a sudden you hear Gugu, my sister-in-law, and Ramen in the background who's recording me do a cartwheel. Gugu is like, why are you letting him do this? He's drunk. He's gonna do what he wants to do, and I can't have any control over this. And then all of a sudden you hear like you do the cartwheel, and then I start rolling over the barrier. Mind you, it was the greatest forward roll ever because I didn't fall on my face, and I like a ninja fucking forward rolled. All of a sudden you hear Gugu, Casey, oh my god, Casey! And then like Simran is like, holy shit, I don't know what to do right now. He's drunk in the middle of the street.
So Casey's out there representing us to the world.
To a T.
Yeah. It was all good. It was good.
We can only but hope that they just thought you were a native Briton of Indian extraction and don't blame that on America.
Yeah. So I did
he was practicing happiness.
Yeah, I was thoroughly happy. So I did the London thing, Roman baths, Stonehenge, saw all the castles and jewels and the swords that the English have taken from my country.
All right. What did you learn, Casey? What new experiences did you have? How did you grow?
Oh, well, I mean, you were asking me about my trip, so whatever.
Well, I was curious about the trip, but now Brian's trying to get it back on track.
I did the whole what's it called, William Wallace thing in Rome. I just ate a lot of pasta. There we go. That was my trip. Although I did see the Sistine Chapel, and that was quite captivating. And humbling. Anyway, so when I got back, I told myself that first of all, I gained a lot of weight from eating a lot of food and just drinking a lot of beer. I told myself I need to change my life and change the way I'm doing things. So I told myself I'm going to start meditating and really stick to it. So basically I'm doing, it's only day 3. It's not a big deal, but the fact that I'm actually sticking with it 3 days through right now is good. So I'm doing that. Just 5 minutes for the first month, 10 minutes for the second month, and the third month, and continuing forward 15 minutes every day. After the first day, 5 minutes, I already was like, 5 minutes is not enough. I need more. But I told myself,
but let it be bonus.
Yeah, I told myself, winning. Yeah, so I told myself I'm just gonna stick with it, and for now, just do 5 for the first month and just be consistent. Don't go crazy. Just be consistent, and consistency is key. I need to get back into the gym. I went back yesterday, but that wasn't. It was good, but I came home and I was exhausted, so I couldn't really prep. I have a technical phone screen with Google coming up at the end of the month, so I need to get ready for that. Yeah, that's another thing I need to talk to you about. They reached out to me. I didn't reach out to them, so that's even scarier. So yeah,
the word's getting out. This guy Casey.
Yeah, I know, right?
They heard about your somersaults.
Their algorithms picked you out in London and said, "Yeah, that was we need to get in touch with."
No, I guess what they were really surprised about was that like I had a biochem background and I taught myself how to program. So, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. My immediate question was like, how many junior level positions do you guys have open? Like I didn't say junior level specifically. I was like, how many different level positions do you have for each level, like junior, mid, and senior? And they're like, oh, most of our positions are open for junior, and those are several hundred. And I'm like, okay.
All right.
Yeah, so ideally I'd like to get hooked up at YouTube. That'd be ideal. Fucking just like
if you're out there, YouTube algorithm.
I know, right? Hey, Google Hangouts gives me job. But yeah, so that, I deal with that. A couple guys in the guild have been very kind in helping me with that. So I need to go to the gym. I'm getting up at 5 a.m. every day because I took advantage of the jet lag. And I said, if I want to make changes in my life, there are if you want to change your bedtime, there are like 2 great ways to change your bedtime and waking up early. 1, when you get jet lagged, and 2, daylight savings time. You know, the falling back, you'll get up an hour, whatever the one that you wake up earlier. Take advantage of that if you want to make change habits, change those kind of habits, because it's really, really important. Outside of that,
3. Go out into the woods and hike like 7 miles a day.
Oh yeah, I figured that's where you were.
Oh god.
Because I'm up at 7 a.m. every day now,
That's
and
a good thing.
no, doesn't
Why?
really fit my life. I don't feel good at 7 a.m.
Oh well, I
Right?
mean, you don't.
I can change my circadian rhythm. I can wake up at different times, but I can't make my brain give me credit for the sleep that happened before like 2 in the morning. It's an interesting thing. I absolutely can wake up early. I'll just be exhausted all day, every day, which is obligate night owl. Sucks. Anyway, sorry. But that is another way. Go out into the woods, you know?
But I went back to practice for the first time in a long time, and certain moves don't work anymore because there's more belly in the way.
Oh no!
No. So,
but you're better off today than you were a few days ago when you didn't have that information, right?
True. So, I went from 260 down to 209. I'm back up to 270 again, and it's just not a good feeling. I want to be able to look. Okay, so I was gonna say I want to look in the mirror and just be like, "Damn, I'm sexy," but that's already the fact. Like, I already look in the fucking mirror and I'm like, I have a shittier grin. I'm like, damn, if I was like 60 pounds lighter, I'd fuck me, but I'd fuck me right now anyway. So,
all right, Casey, whole family affair.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we not doing that anymore?
We're trying to keep it.
Oh, I'd have relations with me if I saw when I see myself in the mirror now. I'm like, I'd ask you on a date. And
there we go.
If I was 70 pounds lighter, I'd still ask me on a date. I'd ask me on a date and be stalker level 5 or creeper level 5, whatever you want to call it. Stage 5 clinger. That's what we call it in India, though. Stalker level 5. It's like Johnny number 5, but just creeper.
And not a robot from a movie from the 80s?
Yeah, well,
Come on, Casey. Most of the people on the internet weren't even alive when that happened.
I know. Well, I thought 5, and that was the first thing that came into my mind.
All right.
But outside of that, man, it was a good experience. I'm glad to be away. My anxiety's gone down. Getting away and taking vacations are really, really important.
Change of scenery can be incredibly valuable just because whatever story you're believing right now that's got you worked up and in your head and making your life miserable, you change your scenery, those processes have to come up with new stories. And it takes a little while for them to catch up. They'll do it. My first 2 weeks on the monastery were like one of the most glorious periods of my life. And then by week 3, it had figured out all the new things I could be irritated by. And I was a miserable shit again. For 2 weeks, I was like, oh, this is it. My life has turned around. Everything's great. Like, colors are brighter and smells are more vibrant. And the sounds of the world fill me with joy. And then week 3, I was like, I fucking hate washing dishes. Everything about this place sucks. I got to wake up. Right. But
that was one of your recent videos, right? The I don't like talking about labeling things that I don't like this.
I don't like mind. It laid low for 2 weeks. It figured it out what this new scene was, and then it was like, you don't like this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and this thing now. Go. Be miserable. But if you move around, right? If you're going from place to place to place, you get a break. And then you can reevaluate your life after that without those processes running their cons on you. It's a really good opportunity.
So a perception there, actually. So one of the phenomenal things, well, not phenomenal, but interesting things that happened to me was so when we got out of the woods, right, we went to breakfast. You ordered a shit ton of food.
So much.
I ordered a normal amount of food. But the next day, so me and Scott ended up driving for 14 hours to get home. And it was in retrospect, we probably should have just stayed in San Francisco. But at the same time, it was nice to sleep in my own bed and do all that. But on Monday, I got up and I was like, I'm going to eat just a ridiculous amount of food and it's going to be awesome. I went to this place. I ordered super delicious food and I was eating it. But I got about a quarter of the way through and I was like, I'm full right now. And this doesn't feel good. And that was so confusing to me because the whole time we were out in the wilderness, I couldn't eat enough food, right? I put I put 8 servings of peanut butter into a tortilla and ate that, and that was not enough calories. So the fact that I was just kind of munching on something I used to consume fully, and like this thing that I used to eat, like, you know, this amount of food that used to be normal for me, I couldn't eat it anymore. My body's like, why are you eating this? It's like, you're not doing anything. And I felt bad. And I was like, why? I was like, this is food I would just eat. And I felt really bad. And I actually ended up going out to a park nearby, and I went on like a hike in a park, because I was like, I'm gonna work for this. I'm gonna give my body, like, my body is so, like, you know, I was just so depressed of like, your body's like, why are you eating so many calories? You don't need any of this, you fat piece of lard. And it was really weird, but it brought out that concept to me of realizing that like I can be a stress eater and that sort of thing, and I would just eat to like be like, oh yeah, eat for the flavor and like to relieve stress. But then after being out in the woods for a few days where I was just eating just so we could keep moving, to then go back to try and eat for stress relief, my body was like, no, that's not what this is for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
yeah,
like,
so
like,
you had an experience, a more sort of healthful experience, and the contrast was really stark after that.
Yeah, it was super shocking. And so now it's like, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to keep that thing I grokked alive now, of like, oh, I probably shouldn't just eat for the flavor, because when my diet was doing its best was when I was just watching my calories too, based on how much I was exercising. And I had let that go. Like, I was super stressed out with work, and I was eating a lot of fast food and stuff. But it was shocking how quickly my body reacclimated to not eating a lot in just those few days. But that was just such a huge shock. And I'm trying to keep that mental reminder alive. It's like, hey, don't eat for stress. Like, eat for sustenance. Like, don't eat to fill yourself up. Fill up your life so then you can eat. Kind of like whatever silly takeaway you want to have from it.
Okay, so the question becomes, for both of you guys, really, right? You've gone out into the world, you've had some experiences, it's made some things clear to you. Where do you have these things documented that you're going to get reminded of it over and over and over again?
I've been writing down in my planner right now, because once again, right, like, surprise, I've got a planner. It's going back to that, like, writing down, because I used to actually write down and log all of the food I was eating every day so I can be tracking that stuff. And I stopped doing that. And then, of course, that was surprise when you go back and you look at my the month of May, it's like, oh, almost every day has a fast food purchase in there because I stopped logging them. Like, what a surprise. So it's like for June, I'm going back through now, and I'm actually writing down what I ate on what days, so I can like try and watch that, because now it's like, hey, this is important to keep track of. Because once again, like, in that month of May, I ate so much fast food, and I should not have, but I also didn't recollect how much I was eating fast food, because my brain was great at like, yeah, let's forget about this, so tomorrow it can be another great treat again too. So yeah, so that's the big thing there, is like trying to actually document it again, because yeah, like I see nothing wrong with eating a big meal or things like that, but it's more of that, like, hey, earn it. Like, this weekend I have plans. There's a couple of restaurants I want to go to, but I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be doing these big walks around Long Beach first to like then reward myself with some food, instead of it being like, just give myself the reward of food.
Yeah, well, you know, all things in proportion to what's going on in your life, right? So
everything in moderation, you in moderation.
Yeah, well, so it's like there's this trap in Zen Buddhism where people think, you know, that it's all about no mind and the void and whatnot. And the Sixth Patriarch is very adamant about a guy named Wei Nang, Platform Sutra, if anybody's following along at home, wants to read some Zen literature. But he talks about this trap of people get hooked on like no mind, right? Like your mind should be empty. And he's like, no, if a lot of stuff's going on, then your mind should be doing a lot of stuff. And if there's nothing going on, then your mind shouldn't be doing anything, because your mind should perfectly reflect the demands that are placed on you by your environment. He doesn't say it in exactly those words, but it's a similar sort of thing, right? Where people can get really invested in the restriction of calories, or in you know, in food as a reward, right, for having done something, where it's like you got to put the fuel in that is commensurate with the demands that you're placing on your body. And to decouple food from all of these other processes that it can get attached to, and that, you know, there's a lot of encouragement in our society to attach to food, where, you know, there's this whole sensory pleasure aspect of it, there's the comfort aspect of it, you know, in addition to the raw sort of biological need aspect of it. But just to really understand that it's fine to engage in those things mindfully, as long as we are always still careful to make sure it's in proportion, right? So if it's like, man, I'm really stressing out and a little something would improve my situation, just triage right here, you know, down the road, we can then look at what structures we need to put in place in our life to make these sorts of situations less stressful. But right now I'm already stressed, so let me eat a little something, get my mind together, right? But just coming at that from a mindful place, so it doesn't become, let me eat all the things, and then that adds more stress than it offsets.
I hate to admit it, eating all the things is good at times. Like once a month, dude. Like you gotta go ham. Everything in moderation, even moderation.
Look, I'm not gonna say that that's not true, because I ordered lunch today and it's still in my room. It's like, dude, how did I eat that much food, right?
Look, my friend.
But
you and I go crazy on some Indian food every time I come over. I'm like, Brian, my computer's broken, fix it. And I'm like, I'll buy you Indian food. And you're like, yup.
Yeah. Right? But again, you know, that's, for me, that's a rarity, right? That's a thing that when I'm really struggling, usually like if I'm really getting sick or if I'm really, really depressed, right? So like the last couple of days as I've been reacclimating, I have definitely been having like a major depressive episode. And so,
dude, same.
So for me, right, you know, just because I wore my body completely out and didn't sleep correctly for like 4 days and all this stuff. And so now it's just like my body's trying to get back on the level, and it's going, you just need to hibernate, right? And so today I was just like struggling to even make myself coffee and, you know, just respond to my correspondence and that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, this is just where it is today, right? I wasn't here to shop, so the house is empty of food.
Oh, really? I mean, your roommates don't go grocery shopping?
Sam did today because he's a good human being. He said, profoundly, implicitly judging the other people who live in the house.
The other monsters.
No, but you know, they're a little less likely to, and you know, they're at different stages of their life where, you know, those habits haven't kicked in for them just yet. But I just knew, like, okay, I don't have the wherewithal to go shopping right now. Like, that's not going to be a thing. I'm barely keeping myself caffeinated right now. So I'm just going to order lunch and get into the place where I can at least do some things around the house and start to get things in order and get my life back, you know, get all the wheels starting to turn. And then once I'm fully recovered, I'll be ready to take right off. But having the knowledge that, like, this is a case where self-care is called for, and understanding that while it's not like I eat out or order food very, very, very rarely, it's one of those things that's you know, once or twice a month kind of deal for me. Whereas I know that's kind of weird for people who live in San Francisco, I guess. Like, but you know, just the knowledge that sometimes the circumstances right now require us to do a thing that is outside of what is our normal self-care routines. Right? Sometimes we just have to operate in a triage mode and go, like, what is sort of the most urgent thing right now? And for me today, it was the most urgent thing right now is to get my caloric level up, because I know my body still has a bit of recovering to do. And I'm not being able to get enough like raw calories and micronutrients, right? So I was like, I'm getting a salad. Like that's going to be the centerpiece of what I order is a salad, and then I'll get all this fatty, starchy stuff. Otherwise, no, I was like, I'm getting these fries and these jalapeno poppers, but I'm getting a big old salad.
Yeah. Damn, dude, that sounds hella good right now.
Right? It was so good.
Oh, jalapeno poppers.
Oh my word, I love jalapeno poppers.
Did you know the British call French fries chips?
I did know that. I knew that.
Really weird. They put
their nomenclature makes way more sense than our nomenclature. They call French fries, which weren't invented in France, they were invented in the United States, chips, because they're literally just chips of a potato that you fry. And then call what we call chips, they call crisps because they're crispy. It makes perfect sense.
If you don't like our language, you can get out of my country.
There are all sorts of things that don't make sense about British English, don't get me wrong. Like boot.
There we go. That's what I like to hear.
Like they call the back of a car a boot. And it's like, that's a trunk. It's just a trunk that's attached to an automobile. But like trunk is a thing that's established.
Clearly the tires are the boots.
Boot doesn't make any sense.
That was a good one, Dennis.
And I'm on it. I will defend sidewalk until my death because it's on the side and you walk there. It's perfect. That's genius.
And what about you mean footpath?
What do they call it?
A footpath?
I think pavement.
No, they call it a footpath.
Footpath. All right. Yeah, that's no. You're wrong. You're wrong. The UK, the entire UK. You're wrong.
Thank you.
That's you're making a lot of enemies, but then again, they did approve Brexit, so
only 2 parts of the UK did.
Yeah, England did. The thing about the UK is that if Scotland wasn't a part of the UK, then the UK wouldn't have had a left-wing government in like the entire 20th century until 1997. Like England is super conservative, so it's and it's the most populous region, so it's kind of not surprising. Anyway,
okay,
way off.
Yeah, we've gone so far. Let's bring it back around. Wrap up. Final thoughts. I know it's your show, but now I'm the one who's leading.
Hey, that's this is a consensus sort of operation. I don't believe in hierarchies. I'm a cranky anarchist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We can essentially talk about whatever I want to talk about.
You can. I might just interrupt you.
Oh, okay. I'm getting kind of sleepy.
Anyway, so what have we learned today? Sometimes moving about in the world, getting outside of our bubbles, gives us opportunities to clarify what it is that we're experiencing at home. It gives us an opportunity to sort of get a window of time where we can look at things without the usual processes distracting us and interfering with our ability to understand what's going on. When we get the insights from doing that, we need to document them, get them in front of ourselves. To
answer your question, I'm not documenting mine in any way, shape, or form. I need to make a note, make a section in my phone just to do that.
Just make a calendar on Google. Make a Google calendar where all you do is say, did I meditate today? Yes or no. You can make an unlimited number of calendars in Google and give them names, and it'll sync to your phone, and you can access them from your phone. It's super easy. Or you could have a spreadsheet.
I'll have a spreadsheet.
There you go. All right, but make sure you're documenting so that you can pick out trends. It's the most important thing. And another thing that's really helpful is to start like a little journal or to start doing recordings on your phone where you spend like a minute or two after your meditation session and just anything you saw that was interesting, anything that happened that was interesting, because lots of stuff happens. That's all we're there for with meditation. It's just what's going on.
Maybe afterwards we can talk about process of meditation again, just in general as a whole, because I'm probably really poopy at it right now.
Well, that's the thing that I could stand to have more of on my channel anyway. So what kind of questions you got?
Well, I'm mainly just sitting at my desk and doing it. For the last time I did it with you, I'm actually not in Half Lotus because I'm just sitting at my desk. But
yeah, that's fine.
I stare at a certain point whatever, and then every time I breathe in or every time I breathe, I take a count, and if I like distract myself in some way, if my brain distracts me,
if you become distracted,
I end up resetting the count, and then that's essentially what I've been doing for like 5 minutes.
That's a good basic practice. The main thing is, oh well, that's actually a pretty high achievement. The basics of meditation are poverty of stimulus and paying attention. That's it. So you want to minimize all stimulation. So it's relatively simple visual field, minimal audio if you can arrange that.
Really?
Yeah.
I was doing, so I have this app that plays water sounds.
That's fine because it's white noise. The key is that we used to have next to the meditation hall, we had a water feature running through the courtyard, right? That's fine. Yeah. The key is that it's non-interesting, right? It's just like you have a blank wall in front of you. You don't need to have an absence of wall. You don't need to be floating in space, but you want minimized stimulus. You want to be at a comfortable temperature so that you don't notice the temperature. You want to be wearing comfortable clothing, just so that you have the maximum of your cognitive resources available to actually focus on what's going on in your mind.
I love how quickly I start hallucinating. It's great.
Yes. So your brain does not like poverty of stimulus. And so, Oliver Sacks did a really good book on hallucinations. And there's an entire chapter just on that, the sorts of hallucinations that arise when you impoverish visual stimuli.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you definitely will start hallucinating. You'll see all kinds of interesting things. I remember I was working with Dan on just sort of some of the fundamentals years ago, and one of the things that tripped him out is he was looking at a wall that had like a folded up comforter in front of it because we just found a random spot in the house, and the comforter was changing colors, and it was like wigging him out.
Yeah. I get a lot of movement sensation. Things will start expanding and contracting, and I'm like, oh.
So those are the things that you can be recording and just noting, right? Because a big part of the value of this sort of introspective activity is just understanding what the bounds of your experience are, what sort of experiences are possible, and because we take it for granted that our experience is a lot more fixed than it is. It's really fluid, actually. When you start to pay attention, you discover like, oh, things can kind of shift around in ways I hadn't really been aware of. And how does that affect how I'm perceiving the world when I'm really not paying attention?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you can just be sitting there paying close attention to something and hallucinate and see different visual effects. Like, what about when you're not really paying attention and you're just looking at something from your peripheral and you think you know what's there, but you don't check in? What could be really happening out there, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's more of a ridiculous story. Just catching something. It has actually, never mind. It's unrelated. I apologize.
Okay. So just that the deal in the beginning with an introspective practice like meditation is you're fact finding for a very long time.
Yeah.
For a very long time, the only thing that you need to do is do the thing and have experiences and collect those experiences and just sort of, build a body of knowledge about how your experiences get put together. So you want to minimize stimulus, maximize the cognitive resources that are available for just paying attention to what is happening, and then just notice whatever happens. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no thing that you should be doing, right? What you are doing with the counting and whatnot is just providing a little bit of structure so that it makes it easier to see deviations from that structure. So when you get distracted, when your only goal is just to count your breathing and then something else is happening, it makes that other thing pop out because there's a background, right? So there's a background-foreground relationship there, and your brain's pattern recognition engines can get to work on that. Whereas if you didn't have anything that you were doing, there was no structure, then it would be harder to really collate and make sense of the facts that were arising for you. Eventually, when that becomes more natural to pay attention to what's going on in your mind and to track it in a detailed way, then you can remove that structure and do a little bit more of a free-form thing. And then there are dozens of different like specialized practices that you can use to create certain effects if you want to explore certain facets of how your experience gets put together. But for the moment, that 5 minutes, you just get yourself in position, make sure a nice upright position, something that promotes alertness, right? No slouchies. Sit at the edge. Sit at the edge of your chair. Keep your back straight. Back straight is the most important part.
Why?
Because it will keep you from beginning to go to sleep. That's just it. When you relax, so an experience that most people have when they do that poverty of stimulus thing and they really start paying attention is that it's very relaxing after a while. It may be a little fraught at first. There's maybe some tension, but that usually dissipates 5 to 10 minutes for most people, and then it becomes very relaxing. It feels really good.
Yeah,
and that
really does. Is that not a bad thing? Or is that
no, that's great. That's ideal. That's how it's supposed to be because you're doing something that's actually really good for your organism. But that can slide into just taking a nap really, really fast. My mother, when I was growing up, used to struggle with that so much. Every single time she would go sit and try to meditate, she would end up just falling asleep. I'd be like, Mom, you've been in there for an hour. I need help with this thing. I'm meditating. You were meditating like 45 minutes ago. You're asleep now.
I think I may have fallen asleep this morning. I was really tired, but
right. So just back upright, and again, that structure lets you notice deviations from that structure. When you begin to slump over, you go, oh yes, that's right. That serves the exact same function as the counting the breaths. When you introduce a little bit of structure, it makes deviations pop out, and then that gives you the information you need. So
okay. I'll have to do the whole sitting up straight. Although it's way more enjoyable to slouch.
In the short run.
Yes.
In the long run, you'll get a lot better results if you sit up straight, and that's going to be way more enjoyable.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So I mean, that's all.
Let's get back off of here. Look at that. We just had a little impromptu introduction to meditative practices. That's always good to get out there into the world. But I think we've done enough good practice and happy tonight. Let's get out of here. I'm stopping the broadcast. Say goodbye, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
I'm sorry for the yawning. I'm tired.